How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Boileye Hobby Time. A little while back, I made a cross-section diorama of a mine occupied by a giant spider. I was inspired to make another section of a mine, maybe the same one, maybe a different one, and add an even worse spider this time. I found the spider mini from Nalzer's Marvelous Minis, that I'm going to be converting into one of the worst spiders ever invented, the Trapdoor spider. As the name suggests, the trapdoor spider likes to build trapdoors, and it disguises those trapdoors with things from its surroundings. So in this case, it will use an old platform over a mine shaft as the trapdoor, and as these miners wander into the mine to do their mining, it will pop up and surprise them with its loving embrace. But seriously though, imagine if this thing was large enough to eat people. For the structure of the mine, I traced and cut out the wall sections from pink XPS insulation foam using my hot wire foam knife. Once all the pieces had been glued together with some foam-safe superglue, the foam was ready to take back Mandalore. I then glued the foam down to a solid wooden base, and I began texturing the walls of the mine with a different foam knife. I tried to give the walls the look of having been chipped away by pickaxes and dynamite. Next, it was obviously time to make a terrain paste. I used some plaster, paint, and Mod Podge. This will help fill the gaps and add a protective layer over all of the foam. After mixing up the paste, I covered the whole diorama and I left it to dry. And once it had dried, it was time to add some mine decor and make it feel a little bit more like a mine. I found some doomed miners, and I cut up some balsa wood sticks into smaller balsa wood sticks to make the supports for the mine. I then flipped over the diorama and I added some cross beams to the ceiling, and then I built the frame of the platform that would rest over the vertical shaft above the spider. I then added the cross planks, and I left one broken in the middle. The miners are cautious about crossing the mine shaft because of this broken plank, but they really miss the greater danger that lies beneath. Once I had added the vertical supports to each of those cross beams, it was time to prime. Once I had painted the mine and the figures black, I used the airbrush to apply my paint. I gave the interior of the tunnel a few layers of earth tones, and then I moved on to painting the figures. There are a few color variations found in trapdoor spiders, and most of them are variations of the color brown. Usually I'd be excited at the opportunity to paint something brown, but I wanted this spider to stand out a little bit better. I know the bright coloring is less stealthy, but for the sake of the viewing experience, I felt like brighter and warmer would look better this time. I also got to practice some object source lighting on my miners, and that was the painting done. Off camera, I added some ground texture to the above ground area, and then I moved on to the lights. I took apart one of these little electric tea light candles to use the battery housing. I disconnected the LED from the battery, and I grabbed 3 nano LEDs to use as the wall lights in the mine. I connected all the negatives together and then to the battery, and all the positives to the switch and then to the battery, and I tested my circuit to make sure it was working. I then punched some holes in the wall with this very pokey dental tool, and I glued one of the LEDs into each of the holes. After putting all of those in place, testing them to make sure they worked, it was time to try something new, and that was making the spider webs. The DIY spiderweb technique that I found to be the most approachable was to use a hot glue gun and shoot some compressed air past the nozzle and send the hot glue flying into little strands which would collect like spiderwebs. The process seemed quite simple, but was actually very difficult to get right. It required just the right touch. Also, don't do as I do as I say. Don't practice new techniques like this straight into your projects. Luckily, it worked out this time. I was eventually able to get some webs that I was happy with, but it easily could have failed and potentially ruined the project. So it's better to be safe than sorry. I finally figured out the correct air pressure to nozzle distance, the glue gun squeeze ratio, and the webs started forming. It was fun to unlock some memories of my Spider-Man Silly String web slinger glove from 2002 before I had it taken away for spraying things I wasn't supposed to. I then dusted up the webs to take away some of the gloss, and I stuck that awful spider in its place. As if the lower half of this diorama wasn't bad enough, I hollowed out one of those little spider cubby holes where they like to sit and peek like creeps. I then put the miniatures into their positions, and I went back with some translucent yellow paint to make those lights just a little bit warmer. I painted the sides of the diorama black, and after that, I called it good. Here is the Wild Imaginary West so far. Thanks for sticking around. There's more to come. That is it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Huge shout out as always to my patrons. You guys are the best. Have an awesome week, everyone. I'll see you next time.